Welcome to the Saving Benjamin channel. Over the last several years, I've come up with a half dozen or more spreadsheet tools that I use to help me with my own personal financial planning for our family. I thought that these tools would be helpful to others and decided that video tutorials along with template downloads would be an effective way to share them. The spreadsheets presented are just a starting point. They can be enhanced by the user to provide additional functionality that I may not have needed or even have thought of. The first spreadsheet that I'm going to present, which I consider foundational to my financial planning, is my cash forecast spreadsheet. Now I'd like to share what the problem was that I was trying to solve with this cash forecast spreadsheet. At the time, my wife and I both got paid on a bi-weekly basis, and as you may know, paydays tend to creep to different parts of the month, and some months have more paydays than others. This made it very difficult for me to determine how much money needed to remain in checking for future expenses. I wanted a way to determine how much of the funds in checking were surplus and could be moved out of checking and into savings or some other investment account. In order to do this, I needed a forecast for what future spending was likely to look like. As a side effect, this tool also ended up being great for tracking historical spending records. The technology that I chose to use to build this spreadsheet was Microsoft Excel because I already had it on my computer. And then some of the functionality that I couldn't figure out how to do with base Excel functionality, I used VBA or Visual Basic for Applications, which is a programming language built into Microsoft Office products. And I used that to do some of the little more advanced functions. I used to budget using one of the major financial software packages, but it was never a very pleasant task and not extremely successful. I could see that we were going over budget, but really didn't know what to do about it sometimes. Were some of my budget numbers too low, or were we just spending too much? Personally, when I came up with this spreadsheet, I was more interested in forecasting what our spending was going to be than in setting a budget and trying to stick to it. I'm not saying that budgeting is not beneficial, just that that was not my goal with this spreadsheet. But, of course, tracking spending is the first step to controlling it. In forecasting, you don't necessarily have to categorize your expenses for analysis. You just need to know how much you expect to spend and when. The spreadsheet I use could easily be expanded to add categories, though. I keep the entries in my spreadsheet roughly at the same level of detail as our checking account. That way it's easy to reconcile with that account. We use a rewards credit card which we pay off every month in full for every expense possible in order to maximize the rewards. So there are no detailed entries for all of those transactions in this spreadsheet, just one entry per month for the payment to that card. I have a set monthly base amount in place for that credit card. For planned expenditures beyond that base amount, such as vacation, I will have additional entries on the same date of the month as the credit card payment that will include those items. That is why I said the level of detail was roughly the same as a checking account. Sometimes multiple entries in the spreadsheet will actually roll up into one payment in the account. I have a different spreadsheet for projecting the current month's credit card balance. I plan to go over that spreadsheet and process in another video in this series. So now I'd like to go over what are the major features that this spreadsheet offers. It provides a forecast of checking and saving account transactions and balances for some length of time into the future. It allows me to set a lower balance limit or buffer for checking so that, as a general rule, checking should never be allowed to go below that amount. The idea is to leave that amount in checking as a buffer for unexpected expenses or spending above the forecasted amounts to guard against overdraft situations. It also keeps a running calculation of forecasted surplus amounts in checking above that set lower limit or buffer. and then provides the ability to semi-automatically suggest transfers to another account, such as savings, at desired intervals for surplus amounts in checking. Some of the additional features in the spreadsheet are that it can assist with date calculations for entries that occur in intervals of weeks or days rather than monthly on the same day of the month. Calculate seasonally adjusted forecast values for seasonally fluctuating expenses such as electric and gas bills. Provide amount lookups for recurring items so that a change to the amount for future forecasts can be changed in one place rather than editing many entries. And then archival of historical data for future analysis. There are some other features that might be nice to have in the spreadsheet that don't exist in it as of this time. That would be automatic generation of entries for future years, categorization for budgeting analysis, as I had mentioned earlier, and inflation adjustment. So that's it for the introduction to the channel and this video series and an overview of the cash forecast spreadsheet. Coming up in the next segment in this series, we will get into a demo of the cash forecast spreadsheet. I will provide a download link for a template for that spreadsheet, and we'll walk through it and see how it can be used to help you with your personal finance.